I made a post on YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, and for some reason Blue Sky, calling for your wildest Eddsworld hot takes and strongest opinions. I got well over 400 responses, so I picked out just a small handful of the most interesting ones to talk about in this video. There were so many different points brought up and a lot of topics I'd love to have a full discussion about. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to everyone, I physically couldn't fit them all into one video. Remember that this is all in good fun, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and my word certainly isn't the end all be all. I specifically encourage people to throw nuance into the wind and be as punchy as possible. Please be nice to each other, I don't want to see any fights break out over this. Let's just have a bit of fun. Classic Eddsworld is pretty bad up until like movie makers. And in a similar vein, Legacy is more consistently good than Classic. Now, this is the kind of hot take I wanted to see, because even though it is way out there as an opinion, you can absolutely see some truth in it. When you look at the very first animations, your Christmas specials, your breakfasts, your Dudette Next Doors, they're not exactly what you'd call high art. You could show a video like Ed Takes Out the Trash between shows on BBC and it would feel right at home. Power Ed, you could air that on primetime. Hammer and Fail, same deal. Very old Eddsworld, meanwhile, absolutely shows its age, and I was quite deep into making videos before I found any interest in watching a lot of it. The way those episodes look, and especially the way they sound, is so clearly pre-2010s internet, and I don't think they hold up against the current online animation scene. There's plenty there to enjoy, especially considering the context of its creation, but it was firmly of its time and there were much better things on the horizon. I do think that Movie Makers is a pretty good marker for when the cartoon started getting really good, both because it had escaped that late 2000s awkwardness to become something more timeless, but it's also when Ed started really coming into his own as a filmmaker, not just as an animator, but also as a writer, director, and editor. I would say he was making some great videos before then. I think This World of Ed is hilarious, I think Casino Night is a lot of fun, even the early zombie films have some impressive animation, but as I said in a recent video, you could pretend that everything pre-Hello Hellhole didn't happen and you wouldn't miss out on much of the conversation. You shouldn't skip them. There's plenty to learn from those videos and they can be a lot of fun, but unless you're a diehard fan, you might find yourself feeling kinda bored from time to time. I really think it should have ended at the end, not because Beyond is bad, but because the end literally feels like the conclusion. I got a lot of opinions boiling down to Beyond never should have been made. Some people think the show is bad now, others say that the end was such a natural ending that the book never should have been reopened. And then there's people who don't like the end, but that's a whole other thing. As long as humans have been around, there have been humans that say that the old stuff was better. I have long been a defender of Eddsworld Beyond. The production is more engaged with the fandom than it has ever been. I think the animation is top tier and there are some great laughs to be found in the writing. If you aren't a fan at this point, that's fine. I'm really sorry that it's not your thing, and I hope the next animation is your favourite one to date. But even if I didn't gel with any of it, I'd still prefer that the show keep going after the end. And to explain why, I'm gonna do the thing I always do and talk about one of 5 things that isn't Eddsworld. Star Wars didn't start as a franchise. It started as one movie, Star Wars. Not A New Hope, not Episode 1 or 4 or whatever, just Star Wars. Audiences in 1977 went in for a sci-fi flick about a farm boy who grows up to become a war hero and take down an evil empire. And that story ended with the closing credits, with no sequel planned. In the nearly 50 years since then, we've had sequel stories and prequel stories and TV shows and books, and a lot of people would say that it never got any better than that first Star Wars movie. When I look back over the entire franchise, I can concede that no, there didn't need to be anything after A New Hope. If that was the only movie George Lucas greenlit, if that was all the Star Wars we had, it'd still be a 10 out of 10. I'd love it as a kid, I'd love it today, and it'd have been an inspiration for millions. But I am so grateful that we have everything else. We have decades of some of the most iconic performances captured on screen, some of the best scoring ever put to film, some of the best production design of the 21st century in my opinion, and some of my favourite scenes in cinema. I got to be a kid watching a brand new Star Wars film on the big screen, and by the time I reached adulthood, I'd done that 3 or 5 times if you include the spin-off films. 10 years later, I haven't gone back to rewatch Solo or Rise of Skywalker. I saw Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it was fine, I guess. I haven't watched any of the other shows, and I don't really think I need to. But why wish for Disney to cancel plans for new TV shows when I have the option of not tuning in, and they could be somebody's introduction to their new favourite franchise? That'd be denying kids the experience I had. Same was true in 1999, same was true in 1980. And that's how I feel about Eddsworld Beyond. You might not love all of it, but if just one episode or comic brought you joy, or if a new release helped make you feel like part of an active community, if just one person found their new favourite webtoon through the newest upload, then I'd say that Legacy and Beyond were worth it. Okay, enough of the big era spanning stuff, let's get on to some specific niches. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I like Tom's new voice. So do I, and I'm not sure it's a hot take either, but I would like to say that I've always admired the direction they took when hiring Ed Templar as the new voice for Tom. Thomas Ridgewell spoke with quite a monotone voice by default, with the ability to go wacky and expressive on a dime. Ed Templar's voice, by contrast, seems naturally very bouncy to me, but he's able to go deadpan when a scene calls for it. And yeah, he doesn't sound exactly like the old guy, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I am reminded of Tim Howdekeet, whose performance as Ed during the Legacy was very different to his predecessor. He sounded almost nothing like Ed Gould. He wasn't an aspiring voice actor, but I look back at his performance very fondly. I think it was a great fit for those episodes, and as much as I love Ed's old voice, Tim took it in a new direction and really made the character his own. I might even be willing to say that he gave my favourite Ed performance, depending on what kind of day I'm having. And of course, now we've got George Gould, whose voice is somehow the exact fusion of Ed and Tim. It's kinda scary. I look at Ed Templar's Tom in much the same way as I look at Tim's Ed. His voice is new and different, and a lot of people might not be used to it just yet, but episodes are written with Tom's new voice in mind, and Templar understood the assignment.
When it tears us limb from limb, we won't feel a thing!
He gives a solid performance, and I think that when a new generation of fans grow up and look back at Eddsworld, Ed's voice is the one that they'll hear when they think of Tom. This user says that they never liked Paul's art style. Wow, that is a hot take. Right up front, I ain't here to disrespect anybody's artistic ability. I've always loved the variation in styles, for Legacy especially, and from a technical perspective, Paul has some of the most impressive shots in the show's history. His style is a fan favourite, and I thank him for all of the work he put into making those animations a reality. Paul has my least favourite Eddsworld art style. Like, it's good, it's really good, it set the baseline for the show going forward, but it's just not as cartoony as some of the other styles, and I like my cartoons cartoony. I've said before that of the Revival series, my favourite looking episodes are Salunatics, led by Jesse Zhang, Hide and Seek, animated by Katie Knit, and the Beyond episodes, initially led by Jackie Lopez, and more recently the likes of Billy Crinion and Penny Bogart and what have you. Maybe I should do a tier list of Eddsworld art styles, because I love each and every one of them, and all of them are so different. When I look at all of these episodes together, all of these beautiful, unique creations, I'm afraid to say that Paul's signature style just does the least for me. In fact, my favourite looking episodes of his are his work on Space Face Part 1, where I have a hard time telling what was him and what was Ed, and the storyboard for The End Part 2. That video was animated by a bunch of different animators working with Paul's animatics, and I absolutely love the way it looks. It's definitely up there with my favourite art styles, to tell you the truth. And it was Paul's outline working to emulate Ed's old style that made it possible, even if it doesn't look like any of his other episodes. I think that really shows off Paul's incredible ability as an animator. Actually, it shows off the incredible ability of all animators. How anyone can not only draw and animate in their own style, but also change it up to match someone else's vision is absolute wizardry to me. All that is to say, everyone's entitled to a wrong opinion, even me. Tord is too overrated. I know his trigger happiness made him a fan favourite, but he gets too much attention, and then the other three, Matt, Ed and Tom, are kinda underrated, especially Ed. I'll admit, I've probably contributed to this a fair amount with all of the Tord videos I've made over the years. Like, there are so many. I do listen to demand, of course, and I know that Tord is what a lot of people want to see, but also, there's a lot to talk about. He's got memorable moments, he's got a defined character arc, and there is a lot of spectacle and mystique surrounding his initial departure. I can't blame anybody for wanting to talk about him all the time. Like, who am I to judge? But yeah, if any character can be called overrated, Tord is a pretty good candidate. In spite of all the videos I've made about him, I didn't care about Tord for the longest time, at least as a character. I don't quote him at all, I happily exclude him when describing the show. I've got a tiny Tord on my shelf and written video essays about the guy, and I still think he's my least favourite. But I do like him, a lot more than I used to, and I fully understand why he is so beloved. What I find really interesting about this comment is the idea that Ed is underrated. That's a really interesting one. It's kind of like how Mario is nobody's favourite Mario character. I love Mario, I really do, but I don't think I've ever picked that guy in a game of Mario Kart. He just gets overlooked when there are so many other fantastic characters and designs that you probably like more. Ed's got maybe the most well-defined, consistent character of them all, as well as some of the most memorable jokes. He's a great pun machine, he's a great straight man, he's a great hero. Honestly, I've never called him my favourite when Matt and Tom are also in the room, but yeah, Ed fans, I see you. I love this guy too. Underrated character. Matt isn't stupid, or at least when everyone in the main cast can be dumb, Matt, while not the brightest bulb in the shed, doesn't deserve to be singled out as the stupid one. It depends which area you're looking at, but honestly, yeah, these guys are all idiots. Legacy Matt definitely fits the stupid character archetype the best, and even now he's not the sharpest tool in the light socket, but whenever he's doing something thoughtless or childish, there's a good chance one of his friends are doing something just as bad. In some episodes, he's the only one not doing anything stupid. I might make a whole video about this one to tell you the truth. Watching a dozen Tord appearances in a row changed my perception of the character. I have a feeling the same will be true of Matt if I make a video about him. I would say there is probably more to him than meets the eye, that's for sure. Everything about Monster Tom sucks. I like Monster Tom. I like the concept, I love his design, I kinda wish he were around more. There's a nice little detail in the aforementioned pool animatic when Tom gets angry and smoke starts pouring from his eyes. Some people have interpreted this to be an artifact of his rage demon breaking free, and I love that idea. As for the way the monster was introduced in Power Ed though, that could have been done a lot better. It wasn't foreshadowed in the episode at all, and I was certainly very confused about what was going on the first few times I watched it. Power Ed was my introduction to Eddsworld, and I probably thought this was a recurring villain or something, not a character transformation. I think it was largely a direction issue, or maybe an editing issue in an otherwise very well animated episode. Just one or two shots of Tom's hand turning grey, followed by a growing shadow or something, could have made this whole sequence a lot clearer. In spite of all that though, I really do like Monster Tom a lot. There's a reason he features in the only fan art I've made. I think it was severely underused, and I'm glad he made a cameo in the end and a more extensive appearance in Crash Zoom. And if you think the Monster Tom lore sounds like it was written by a 15-year-old, that's because it was. Tom Scar's lore is back in action, baby. The Eddsworld shorts are a great way to notify fans that the show is still alive. Definitely. When it comes to my own channel, I'm increasingly favouring the type of video that comes in, makes a point, doesn't overstay its welcome, and moves on. I haven't stopped making or even watching long form content. I recently made a cameo in a 42-hour Beverly Hillbillies thing, but not every video needs to be the final word. Just as not every cartoon needs to have a multi-part storyline. The shorts are nice because they can hit you with a simple premise, tell a couple quick jokes, and make you smile before you move on with the rest of your day. But also, videos take a long time, not even just animated ones. This script took me a couple of days to write, and it's mostly just a bunch of opinions on a page with almost no research. It can take me about an hour to edit just 1 minute of finished video depending on the complexity of what's on screen. Voiceover has a considerable time commitment. I'm actually just entering my 40-minute mark of recording the audio for this video, and there's still some way to go. And I'm just one guy. Imagine spending months of your life working with a big team at the top of your game just to end up with 6 minutes of YouTube video. It's putting a lot of eggs into one basket, and don't forget that Legacy was a financial black hole of a production. There are much faster and safer ways of turning a profit, let me just say that much. Diversifying your production so that you're making a couple of long-form videos a year, a short every few months, and a comic about once a week just makes sense to me, and it means that we get more funny stuff, so that's a win. Alright, let's speed things up at the end here. Characters like Bing, Larry, and the neighbors are underused and should have their own chapters. Hell yeah, I saw a lot of love for the neighbors in particular. Lots of people want these guys to have their own episodes, and I even saw one person who wanted them to have their own spin-off show, and rightly so. The neighbors get their own comic strips occasionally, and I think it's a joy to see them every time. Same with the evil director and Larry, who are two of my favourite characters. I get the desire to make new characters like the scientist in The Birds and the Bees, or the bullies in Surf and Turf Wars, but give me 2 minutes of Eduardo and I'll be a happy man. On a similar note, I like Ellsworld more than Eddsworld. I think it's a miracle that nobody dislikes Ellsworld. I don't know if we've just got a particularly accepting fandom, or they just got these guys right the first time, but the Ellsworld girls are about as universally loved as anything else in the show. Saying Ellsworld is better than Eddsworld? That's not a common opinion. It's like saying that Treehouse of Horror is peak Simpsons, but I can see why they have such a cult following. My most popular video essay is about an Ellsworld character. That has to mean something. I love Tom's old unibrow eye. You know what? So do I. Sure, you can do a lot more with his current design. Even with the black eyes, his facial expressions can be a lot more interesting, and I'm glad they changed it in the long run. But the unibrow thing was a lot of fun, and I do kind of miss it. I'm glad we get to see callbacks to it from time to time. Also, his unibrows being incorporated into his blinking animation. That's kinda neat. Zanta Claws III is the absolute best episode of Eddsworld. It's definitely up there. It's probably the most impressive cartoon Ed made, and it still makes me laugh. Having favourites is a bit of a meaningless endeavour, but Zanta Claws III is a good candidate for being my all-time favourite. Zanta Claws III was the worst of the Zanta Claws episodes. You just can't please anybody nowadays. The art style in Ruined and Hello Hellhole is the best art style in the entire runtime of Eddsworld. I don't agree, but I definitely get the appeal. Technically speaking, these designs are pretty rough and dated, but there's certainly a charm to the look that I find quite nice. I also love the look of Season 1 SpongeBob and Simpsons. Shows like Daria and BoJack Horseman look kinda ugly at first blush, but I wouldn't change a frame. Ed stopped animating like this for a reason, but every time they call back to this look, it makes me happy. The recent Eddsworld comics aren't funny? Hard disagree. You can press the random comic button on the website and there's a pretty good chance that the resulting comic will at least bring a smile to your face, including the most recent comics. I'd kind of overlooked them for a long time, but I recently went through a whole bunch of comics and there are some real hidden gems in there. And yeah, I really like a lot of the post-Legacy ones. If you haven't been keeping up with the comics, I'd say you're really missing out. Also, some of these things look absolutely gorgeous, are you kidding me? There is no canon lore, the plot of Eddsworld and how it all strings together is completely up to interpretation. I agree. Of course, when anybody makes art, they have at least some intention to say something, even if they just want to make you laugh. You can bring your own readings and headcanons, and they can be valid, but also there is an intended meaning that should be taken into consideration. But lore and canon in Eddsworld? Nah. Ed was never bound by continuity. There is no reason new creators should be bound by themselves or those before them unless they want to build upon ideas that have already been laid down. I'll keep on speculating and making theories because I think it's fun, but there are more important things in this world than whether or not Toward Eddsworld could build a big robot. And I think we have time for just one more. If a lot of people let go of the best era and just embrace the show in its totality, you have a lot more fun. It should come as absolutely no surprise that I can advocate for this mindset 100%. I do like to have favourites. I love ranking my favourite things and creating canonical lists of the best. Likewise, you don't have to love the entire output of a brand or an artist. I only really enjoy half of Wes Anderson's movies, even though the ones I do like put him in the running for my favourite director. To that extent, I've seen people shape entire internet identities around not liking particular aspects of a thing they like, and it's all just so silly. It's so silly. why bother? Like, stay critical of the media you consume. Doing so can help you find more things you like, but why put so much effort into being cynical all the time? It's just boring. We're just here to have fun, and if having to pick and choose the best era is causing you to have less fun, then maybe just try and embrace the show in its totality, and you might have a bit more fun. And that's all there is to say. Thank you to everybody who submitted your hot takes. I had a lot of fun doing this. I'm sorry that I couldn't get around to everybody or cover any similar repeat takes. Maybe I'll have to do this again someday, or make a full video about some of these points you raised, because you lot had some pretty good ones, and made me rethink a lot of things. And I will see you in the next one. Be excellent to each other.